Hey there, PCC and the internet at large. Paul and Betsy Taylor here to kind of talk about the book that we've been reading the past couple weeks. Now, before we even get into this, please know Paul and I never, ever read the same books. We're not interested in the same things. But Paul bought a bunch of books for his classroom when this whole COVID crisis started. And he picked this one up around mid-May and blazed right through it. And he said, hey, can you please read this book? I want to talk to somebody about this. I want to know what you think about this. I want to bounce some ideas off. Because of the crisis that's facing us today. The reason why is because this book is called Stamped, Racism, Antiracism, and You. It's co-authored by two gentlemen, Jason Reynolds and Ibram Kendi. Ibram Kendi is a commentator on TV. He's kind of an expert in racist and anti-racist history. He's an American University professor of American history. One of his more famous books is called Stamped from the Beginning, which is a nonfiction history of racism in America. And because of the importance of the events and the ideas that were brought up in that adult book, Jason Reynolds decided to kind of rewrite this book using a young African-American male perspective and using his expertise because he is a young adult fiction writer. So
I bought this book to read and to learn. I've read some of Jason Reynolds' young adult books, and I really enjoyed them. He has a writing style and a voice that is new and different to me. I think it's important for me to read those types of books and for my students to listen and hear and read those different voices and writing styles. So this particular book is not meant for my fourth graders. It's meant for more the middle schoolers and up. It's a book that describes the history of racist and anti-racist ideas and people and events. And it starts from the year 1415. And the first chapter is called The World's First Racist. And it goes all the way to present day. And in between, there are people you've heard of and events you've heard of: Harriet Beecher Stowe, Frederick Douglass, presidents, abolitionists, and people that you've never heard of, and events that you have not heard of. But the author's message, or the both authors' messages, is that in order to change things for the better, we need to understand. Mm-hmm. And in order to understand, we need to educate ourselves. So I highly recommend this book for my middle school youth and high school youth, and anyone interested in a history book like no other that I've ever read.
Mm-hmm. So I'm only about halfway through it, but honestly, it's a page turner. It definitely is engaging and extremely interesting. Sometimes you can't really believe that some of this stuff is actual history. So I'm going to read an excerpt and the person who wrote this particular part of the book is Jason Reynolds, that young adult author, and this is what his voice sounds like. And this excerpt kind of gets to the crux or the thesis of the book, and he starts by saying, oh, and there are 3 words I want you to keep in mind. 3 words to describe people we'll be exploring: segregationist, assimilationist, anti-racist. There are serious definitions to these things, but I'm going to give you mine. Segregationists are haters, like real haters, people who hate you for not being like them. Assimilationists are people who like you, but only with quotation marks, like they like you, meaning they like you because you're like them. And then there are anti-racists. They love you because you're like you. But it's important to note, life can rarely be wrapped into single-word descriptions. It isn't neat and perfectly shaped. So sometimes over the course of a lifetime, and even over the course of a day, people can take on and act out ideas represented by more than one of these 3 identities. They can be both. They can be and. Just keep that in mind as we explore these folks. And actually, these aren't just words we'll be using to describe the people in this book. They're also the words we'll be using to describe you and me and all of us. So that's a little taste of this book. We highly recommend it. And when you read it, come up to us in church and we can all discuss it.